Hello guys, welcome in this 5th episode of my racing game chart where I put the games according to their graphics and physics. I remind you I put only the games I played. Obviously I can put in the list the games I never played. This is how we left this list 9 months ago. Let's add more games. Automobilista 2 is an excellent example of modern full simulation. It's one of the racing games with the best ratio between physics and graphics, if we exclude the mods. It's heavily based on Project Cars 2. In fact, you'll notice a lot of similarities between the two games. But the physics on Automobilista 2 are way more realistic, in my opinion. It doesn't have the same popularity of racing, of course, but surely it deserves a possibility. It's focused a lot in South America Championships, but it features also tracks from all parts of the world. I hope in the future it will feature more street legal cars. In that way it will represent a realistic alternative to Forza Motorsport for computer players. The game is full of trucks and cars already, but we are waiting for the DLC. Too bad it doesn't officially support modes like Assetto Corsa. Richard Bird's Rally wasn't just the best rally game ever when it was released back in 2005. It was probably one of the best racing games in those years in terms of physics. And in terms of physics, even today, it's still an impressive game and pretty hard as well, like most of rally games. I remind you in this chart I don't consider it mods, I evaluate just the original game. For that reason the original game doesn't overtake Dirt Rally 2 in terms of physics.
Over crest, 100. Flat right, 70. Keep middle, over crest. Easy right, 30.
In fact, during my test I noticed a pretty unrealistic behavior of front-wheel drive car. Anyway, for a 15 years old game, being that realistic image, even for 2020 standards, is something exceptional. And I'm sure in this game, if I add a second chapter made in 2020, surely it will be one of the most realistic rally games ever. Even if mods made the original game way better in both physics and graphics parts. What's the good thing about Test Drive Ferrari Racing Legends? Ferrari cars and good graphics for 2012 standards. But what's the bad thing about this game? Physics. It retakes the same madness game engine from Need for Speed Shift, but in some cases it feels even worse while you drive the cars, especially the open wheels. And what's the terrible thing about this game? The difficulty. Modestly, you know I have a certain level of experience with racing games, but this game, it isn't just hard, it's frustrating, especially with more powerful cars. Some car reactions are just impossible to justify. The developers wanted to classify it as a simulation, more like a sim arcade, but for me it isn't more than a simple arcade racing game, but an arcade racing game with serious gameplay problems. The last Formula 1 game I played was Formula 1 2013, back when Formula 1 cars still had the glorious V8 natural aspirated engine. It was nice to finally replay another Formula 1 game after all these years. Graphically, I consider Formula 1 2020 average, not worthy of criticism or praise, especially if we compare it with other modern racing games. In my opinion, it looks better in wet conditions. Talking about physics, it's quite clear the game wants to be playable by the biggest part of the public, both beginners and pro. For that reason, the developers had to study a driving system which could make everyone happy, and Formula 1 2020 is the result. A realistic game, but not an hardcore one like iRacing. I've been more precise about my thoughts on my video review. Anyway, it's a really nice game that will give you a lot of hours of fun, and I'm sure at 100% of that.
Itself. Welcome to Motorstorm.
Motorstorm Pacific Rift was the sequel of Motorstorm. The biggest change was the location. We moved from the desert to a lush tropical forest. But the change didn't stop there. Graphics were improved, vehicles were more detailed, but also the physics changed a bit. Vehicles were more differentiated compared to the first Motorstorm, but controls were simplified to make the drive more immediate, especially on the weight transfer, which was more pronounced in the first game. For that reason, the first Motorstorm was more realistic, even if it still was an arcade game. Temperature made its debut and had an influence on the turbo. For example, being close to the fire and lava meant you couldn't use the turbo to avoid overheating the car. This is one of my favorite racing games for PlayStation 3. I'm so sad Evolution Studios doesn't exist anymore. I wish it so badly a Motorstorm on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. The main reason why we'll remember Fuel is the map size, 14,400 square kilometers. To compare, the map of Los Santos in Grand Theft Auto 5 is just 127 square kilometers. Graphics were more than okay back in 2009. The horizon line was very large and the visual impact was astonishing. But if we study the physics, Fuel didn't give you a good feeling. The contact system was sloppy, while the suspension system was almost horrible in most of cars. You had the impression the suspension were super stiff, even on off-road vehicles. Moreover, vehicles were poorly differentiated. You couldn't feel a lot of differences between a monster truck and a buggy. This game really needed the physics from Motorstorm. This game had so much potential, and the huge map wasn't enough to compensate the lacks of the game. Still, when I was a teenager, I liked a lot exploring the huge map. So, this is my chart after the 5th episode. I hope it will help you to choose your next racing games. I know there are some racing games which are missing, but as I told you before, I can add games I never played. So, tell me in the comments where you'd put the missing games in the chat. And thank you for watching, see you!